Hey, I'm Dorottya Nizsalovsky. I live in Budapest, in the wonderful capital of Hungary. We've learned to play the harp for 10 years with my twin sister. Now I'm studying law, but Fanny is still playing the harp. She's studying at the Academy of Music in Krakow, Poland. In our childhood, we heard a lot about Hungarian harpists. For example, Aristide von Würzler, who was the founder of the world-famous New York Harp Ensemble. Not long ago, Fanny took part in a harp competition organized by Eva Jaslar. It turned out that Eva was also founder and member of the New York Harp Ensemble and has played in 60 countries worldwide with them. The group was invited to the White House by Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and their guests, for example, His Highness King of Belgium. In 1985, they played for Pope St. John Paul II at the Vatican in front of tens of thousands of believers.
The New York Harp Ensemble is a brainchild of Dr. Aristide von Würzler, who established the group in the summer of 1970. Since that time, the group has been traveling extensively, not only in the United States, but also in Canada, in Latin America, in Europe, the Near, Middle, and the Far East. We've done numerous recordings for Golden Crest, Hispavox Musical Heritage Society. We've played and performed on various radio and television programs. We played in many presidential palaces and also in the White House.
Eva was born in Bytom, Poland. In 1969, she got permission to travel beyond the Iron Curtain and participate in a harp competition in the USA. She won a scholarship there, and thus her ambitious career has begun. Fanny and I became very excited because we could get to know a real legend. We decided to make a movie showing her wonderful life story. Eva spends her summers in New York, and in winter she lives and works in Szczecin, where she organizes the Polish National Harp Contest. Once a tour guide presented this Baroque church behind us to a tourist group when, seeing Eva, he stopped in the middle of his sentence and suddenly exclaimed, "This is Eva Jaslar, the famous harpist of our town. Let's meet her."
My mother was a professor of psychology. My father was pharmacist, but they both have beautiful voices. My father especially has a wonderful tenor voice. He loved singing, and while he was studying, together with 3 other guys, they established some singing quartet, and every summer they would go to the spa at the Polish Sea, and they would have room and board and some pocket money. They enjoyed themselves, they sang, and when I think about my childhood, I hear my father singing while shaving most of the time, but his voice was absolutely wonderful, his repertoire was great, so we had a lot of music. I was born in Bytom, which was a town where belonged to Germany, since we had an opera house and school of music and ballet school, and it was quite established. So people from Lvov, from all those towns that now belong to Ukraine came. I was growing in town that music was very important, and in every house there was a piano. So I started playing the piano, and only later on I noticed the harp at school, and I said to myself, it's such a beautiful instrument, why don't I play it? And then during Christmas I was given this a little picture of Saint Cecily playing some also stringed instruments, So right away I said to myself, oh, God wants me to play the harp because the harp is at school. Mama, I want to play the harp. Mama says, okay, go to the teacher, say, my name is Eva Jaslar and I would like to play the harp, which I did. I was 12 years old. I started playing the harp because I wanted to be different than all my girlfriends. Everybody played the piano, so I wanted to be different. And this is how it started. You couldn't.
Really?
The answer is very, very simple. You couldn't. The harp was in the School of Music only because it was found on the attic of someone's home. No one knew what it exactly was, but they guessed it is a musical instrument, and here we have School of Music, so let's bring it to the School of Music. And again, from this part of Poland that was given to the Soviet Union, there came a teacher of harp who lived in Bytom, and with her, her father, who was repairing harps. Just coincidence. And when I started playing the harp, so I just practiced and I was very diligent, and I graduated from the High School of Music, and then I went to Warsaw. And my mother went with me because the professor wanted to talk to my mother. And she said, when will you buy harp for your daughter? And my mother, being a professor of the university, and my father, who had also a good position, my mother said, we both love our daughter very much. We both have 2 jobs, but we are not going to steal in order to buy our daughter the harp. So I didn't have the harp. I graduated from the Academy of Music in Warsaw. Very few people had harps, and I left. And I left for the competition that Aristide von Würzler. It was the very first international competition that Aristide von Würzler put together in the United States of America. And I went there and I got scholarship, and I was so happy because I could stay over there 1 year. And during this year I had recitals here and there, and when I was putting the money together I said to myself, oh, I have to stay here a few more years because I will be able to buy my very own first harp. And this is what happened. So when I finally had some money saved and I decided I'm going to buy the harp, so Aristide von Würzler told me which harp I am supposed to buy, because we already had the New York Harp Ensemble and we had to have the same harps, 4 same harps, because then it was easier to tune them and they looked beautifully. So I knew that I had to go to Chicago and buy this American harp. I went there. The harp then, in 1974, cost $4,000. I had 1,000. I was nobody. I was a little girl from Poland that started making little money to support herself in New York. They said, it's fine. Give us this $1,000, and the 3,000 they put for 5 years or 6 years, and every month I was paying them. And it was wonderful. Wow. Now they don't do things like that. Yeah. You just have to have the full amount or you don't get the harp. Yeah. So this is, I remember it with great fondness, and very happy I am about that. Maybe they wanted to help Polish girl, and in the factory in Chicago, my harp was done by Mr. Wójcik, Polish, another harp, Mr. Maca, and I was shown the factory by Walter Krasicki, so I felt that almost I was buying Polish harp. Well, it was the main, not the revolution, just the fact that we were slaves. We were not living in a free country. Everybody that wished me well, my family and my close friends, they knew that I would try to stay in United States and learn, and stay at least 1 or 2 years on scholarship, because had I come back right away, they would think that I don't have something wrong with my head, right? Nobody goes back without learning something and bringing at least some experience back. But the moment Poland became free, and the first president of Poland, Lech Wałęsa, was asking people, Polish people living around the world, do come back, we need you. I took him seriously. I took my daughter, I took my harp, and I came back. I believe that I am true I do love my country, and I am true about it. Not like some people who just talk about it, but their lives say differently. I promised someone in Polish Artists Agency that I will come back. It took me 23 years, but I did come back. Polish ministry paid for my plane ticket from Warsaw to Amsterdam. And from Amsterdam to New York and back, Professor von Würzler arranged tickets for all of us that came from behind the Iron Curtain, because they were girls from Czechoslovakia, from Hungary, from Romania, from Bulgaria. We were quite a lot, and from Poland. My ticket got lost. This ticket from Amsterdam, New York got lost. So I would go to KLM every morning for 1 week with my suitcase. Did my ticket come? No, it didn't come. But finally, this guy in KLM got so bored with me that he just gave me the ticket that was never paid. It was difficult because I couldn't take more than $5 with me. Polish ministry gave me money for these 2 weeks that I had to then, whatever I did not spend, I had to give back, and I did give back. We are sitting in Cafe Museum, which is a beautiful cafe place in a palace, and this place was just stables for the horses. And in 2003, I believe, or around that time, it was recreated, and this has a very good acoustics. So as I teach in 2 schools, in Bielsko-Biała and in Czech Cieszyn, 2 times a year, my students, together with some other students playing different instruments and myself, we play right here in January. It's called W Nowy Rok z harfą, which means that we are entering New Year with the harp. And then in June, Vive les vacances, that we are happy that vacation is beginning. So it's been a tradition like that for the past maybe 12 years that we are here.
Eva, Monica, Yeyud, Barbara, and Aristide, who you will meet in a moment, are the New York Harp Ensemble. They and their 4 harps filled Aristide's living room as they practiced for a Saturday concert at Alice Tully Hall.
The rehearsals of the New York Harp Ensemble took place at the apartment of the von Würzlers in Manhattan, in New York. At the beginning, the Würzlers had only 1 harp each. So there were 2 harps and 4 harpists. So I bought my harp sort of early in our careers, but 4 years after the harp ensemble was founded. So, but we had to borrow 2 additional harps in order to practice, and some of us always would bring the harp to the apartment. Only later on the Würzlers had 4 harps of their own, and it was easier. When I was playing with the New York Harp Ensemble, I played with the group 17 years. And in those 17 years, there were 14 girls that played in the quartet, because the girls would either marry or move or have other ideas for their lives, so they would leave the quartet and would go on their own ways. That's why the rehearsals were for us, for Barbara and myself, who stayed with von Würzler from the beginning. It was difficult because every time a new girl came, we would have to rehearse the pieces again with them instead of learning new pieces, especially that there were composers that were writing for us. There were composers from Italy, from Hungary, from Turkey, from Poland, that would write for the New York Harp Ensemble. So we had things to do, and Würzler would make arrangements for us. So it was sort of tedious work that we had to go back to the pieces that we already knew, but this is how it was. During the rehearsals there were no hardships. We just learned our parts earlier, or maybe the hardship was that when we were given a new piece, the new piece was either composed or arranged by von Würzler, he would make a score. And then each of us would have to come to his place with the empty sheets of music, and we would hand copy our own parts. So each one played from the copy that we made. This was sort of difficult because now in the era that you have, you can make a photograph of the part or you Xerox copy it is so much easier. So it was sort of difficult, but we took it as life. Well, if we wanted to play, we had to have music.
As far as we've been able to find out, there are only 2 harp quartets in the world. One of them is in the Soviet Union, and the other one is here in the Today Show studio. It is the New York Harp Ensemble, and they're here today with us this morning. 4 musicians who make up the quartet. 3 are Polish, 1 is Korean, and I am going to do my best to pronounce their names flawlessly. You have an effect like a frog?
Yes, of course. You will say between the strings we put the tuning key and we put to the sounding, but it's very interesting effects, of course.
Do men ever play the harp? Why do we always associate a harp with women?
But if you know me a little bit better, you know, I like to work with ladies, of course.
It was not a friendship, it was, oh, well, we respected one another, and when finally things happened that I couldn't take anymore, I just left the New York Harp Ensemble. So it was a working relationship and professor-student relationship, but it was nice. I mean, we had a lot of hilarious times together because we traveled so much, and we were together 24 hours a day. So we had to like one another, otherwise we would not be able to work together. Aristide was my teacher and Barbara was my friend. And then when I gave birth to my only child, my daughter, Barbara was her godmother. Yeah, so we really had a very meaningful relationship. I remember a couple of things. For instance, maybe it was Iran, maybe it was Turkey, but it was probably Iran, where we went for a walk. So von Würzler and the New York Harp Ensemble, meaning for girls. And there was this guy sitting in a little bench, and he just looked at the Würzler, at Aristide, and he looked at us, and then he started talking to him. So you have 4 wives, or you must be very rich, you know, because I have 3 wives, but I'm about to buy my next one. I only have 1 cow, and I need to have 2 cows because she's rather expensive. And he asked, so how do you manage your four wives? And Aristide says, well, you know, it is very difficult because my 4 ladies like to go into 5 different directions. And then he asked, and how do you manage your wives? And he said, oh, they are fine. I mean, one is responsible for taking care of the children, the other one is responsible for cleaning and doing the laundry, and the third one is just doing the cooking. So what will the 4th one do? And she'll be the youngest one, so I have different plans for her. And then I remember one time, it was in China. We were in Beijing, invited to dinner, and it was, of course, Beijing duck, which is extremely popular around the world. So we had nothing but duck in all kinds of versions. So first came the soup. In big tureen there was the soup, and there were tongues of the duck floating over there, and the host would say, look at how many ducks had to be killed in order to make the soup for you. It was like, I don't know, 100. We were all trying to be impressed by that. And then, for some reason, I was chosen and given the head of the duck, which was just the head, split in half, butterfly ways, so with the eyes still over there, and I looked at it and I went, oop, like this, and I made the biggest faux pas, because I was supposed to be happy, and I don't know if I was supposed to start eating the eyes or whatnot. It was the most delicious part of the duck, and I didn't like it. So here we are in Italy. We arrived to Italy on Leonardo da Vinci ship. That was that started the trip in New York, then Boston, then Palma de Mallorca, Lisbon, probably first Lisbon, and finally Genoa. And then we had many concerts in Italy, and then we still needed money to buy our tickets, plane tickets, back home to New York. But Aristide said that we have to take care of the harps and stay a little bit longer because we needed still more money, and he is flying back to New York because he has to arrange additional concerts for us. So he just left us over there, flew to New York. Was it funny? I don't know, maybe now it is. I learned for instance, from one girl. She was half Chinese and half Italian, who played in our group for some time, maybe 2 years, and then she quit. And when I was about to quit the New York Harp Ensemble because of my daughter, and I needed doing something else, and I couldn't travel so much anymore. So I asked her, how do I go about looking for a job? And she said, don't look for a job, create your own. And this is an idea that I brought from the United States home, and when I came back to Poland, I did create my own working places. And now we are standing in the castle of Habsburgs with the greenhouse, which is an addition to the main building, in which Liszt Ferenc played. So this is very famous for that. And the very street, this little tiny alley here, it was put together a few years ago, and it's called the Street of the Women of Cieszyn. So since I was also noticed by the Cieszyn population as someone who is doing something for the town and for a dissemination of culture in Cieszyn, so I think it's quite appropriate that we are standing in this little street of Cieszyn women. Fun, education, travels. My life charmed. I had a wonderful childhood, even though it was in Poland that was not free. I had wonderful time in the United States of America because I traveled the world, and I am fulfilled as a person, I am fulfilled as a woman, and I'm happy that I could come back to Poland and share with Polish people what I gathered and collected and experienced throughout the years that I was away from Poland. I'm a very lucky person. When I decided to stay in the United States of America, when I went there for the international harp competition in Hartford, I knew that I am not going to go back to Poland as long as it is under communistic regime. But the moment the Iron Wall disappeared and Poland became a free country again, I had no excuse to stay in the United States. And first I worked in the college of teachers of foreign languages. I taught drama activities when I was teaching English through songs and games. And I would pretend that I am taking my students to Broadway because we listened to Les Miserables or Chicago. Or then I would tell them, and today I am taking you to the opera, and we were listening to Porgy and Bess. Or that I am taking you to the Philharmonic Hall when we were listening to Peter and the Wolf by Prokofiev. So this is how they learned the instruments, and how they learned to follow the story, and how they learned English. And at the beginning I thought that I don't want to teach the harp, because what work will they find when they graduate? But then my brother's son started, he put together a group called Grupa Mozarta, which is the Mozart's group. They are all excellently educated virtuoso musicians. This is a regular string quartet, and they play pieces that combine classical music with music from the movies, with folk music, and they have really fun on stage. And I said to myself that if I teach my pupils well, that they will have theory, that they will have all the necessary skills to be good musicians, they will make it, that they will find their own way, that they will find their own path, whatever. They just have to be really very well prepared. And I started teaching privately, and after 2 years we were looking for a school for my first pupil, and it was either in Cieszyn or in Bielsko-Biała. And since in Bielsko-Biała there was a school that was combining music school with a general school, public school, and this is similar to what I graduated from in Bytom, so I decided that I'm going to go to the director over there and see what he says. So I went to the director of the school, I told him who I am, I told him that I came back from United States, and that I would like to share my experience with young people, and I would like to teach in his school. And I had only one student. So we had concert for the school. They could listen to me, they could listen to my little girl, and I started teaching over there. And the next year I had 2 students, because a little one came to the first grade. She was 7 years old. And then slowly but surely I built a very good harp class in Bielsko-Biała. And a little bit later I also opened a harp class in Czeski Cieszyn, because I married a Polish gentleman who had a Czech passport, living on the other side of Olza River, which means in Czech Republic. So I started teaching over there, and in 2003, I put together Polish Harp Society, which I did copying the American Harp Society. And every 4 months, we are putting out the bulletin of Polish Harp Society. And our main goal of the society is to help young musicians on their way to become professionals. So we are giving money for scholarships, for studying, for taking master classes abroad, for going to competitions abroad, or for attending World Harp Congresses when they play. We sponsor their trip or just share in their expenses. And also every 2 years we do international harp competition of duos with the harp, that I learned is the only one of this kind. And I decided that Cieszyn is the center of Europe, because from Cieszyn you have 300-something kilometers to Prague, to Warsaw, to Vienna, to Budapest, to Bratislava. So I just wanted to be with my parents, and I thought that you can live anywhere and make your life anywhere as long as you have an idea and you are well prepared to do your job well, and you are willing to take chances, to take challenges, to meet challenges, and just work hard. When I married my husband, he still had to live in Prague, where he was working all his grown-up years. He lived in Prague. So I went with my daughter. We joined him in Prague. And I thought that for the first time in my life, I will be just wife and mother. But the moment my harpist friends, like Dagmar Platilova, who played with us in the New York Harp Ensemble, when she learned that I'm in Prague, right away I had a telephone call that I am needed in the Statnie Opera Praha, which is the state opera, because one harpist was already at home with very little child, and the other harpist was just about to give birth to her child, so I was needed. And for 2 years I worked in Prague at the opera house. So, variations. Yes, Louis Spohr. So, he lived in which era?
In era.
When did he live?
In the 19th century.
Yeah, in the 19th century. His wife was a harpist. He was a violin player and an excellent composer, and they traveled together, and it was just wonderful, right? This variation, this piece, Je suis encore dans mon printemps, was a piece that, obligatory piece in the competition in 1969, the competition for which I went to Hartford. And this is how my career really started. And Professor von Würzler gave me scholarship, and it made me stay in the United States. And then we put together the New York Harp Ensemble. This piece is technically rather challenging, only because, you see, the wife of Spohr, what was Dorette Spohr, was playing on a small harp, on a smaller harp, and I think maybe it was easy, but for you, tam 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 tiram pam param pam param pam, I believe that you will just have to, make sure that your muscles remember the jumps. You won't have time to look over there, just the muscles will know that this is the fourth, this is the fifth, this is the sixth, how you'll be jumping. But play it from the beginning. I will remember my good days of many, many years ago, and I had to practice it when I went to Hartford. Well, we had to commission pieces because there was no repertoire for 4 harps. When we began, there was André Gretry, Danse des Femmes, that was for 3 harps. So the 4th harp was doing something I don't remember. Von Würzler did the 4th part. Probably he took something from the 1st harp, from the 2nd and 3rd, and he made it into a 4th harp. We took pieces that were written for 2 harps. For instance, Chedelov did this partita. He did it for 2 harps, so we played it on 4 harps, and it was we loved it, and it was very well played by us. Or Clair de Lune, that was written for 2 harps, we would play for 4 harps. It was not, and then von Würzler took Vivaldi's Concerto D Major, and he made it into 4 harps. And we didn't have repertoire, so once we started traveling, there were composers who, even without being asked to compose something for us, they wanted to compose something for us. Because we were a different chamber group, they liked what they heard, and they wanted us to perform their pieces. So we had 2 composers, Kitty and Montori from Italy, that were writing for us, Ligeti wrote something for us. Turkish composer Adnan Saygun wrote a beautiful piece for us. Then we commissioned from Alan Hovhannes, and I love this piece, Island of the Mysterious Bells. Then we asked the permission of Leonard Bernstein if we could do one of his short pieces, if we could do it for 4 harps, and he said yes. We even did Stockhausen's Zodiac for 4 harps. Yes, Polish composer wrote for 4 harps, and he was so happy that finally, because he used the 12th tone technique, and of course for 1 harp it was prohibitively difficult, but having 4 harps he could do it. So yes, they were composers that were writing especially and expressly for the New York Harp Ensemble. The Chinese composer who wrote for us when we went to China in 1981, Barbara von Würzler, she got very much interested in guqin, in Chinese koto, and she purchased one, and then next year when we came back there was a piece for us for 4 harps and guqin. So you see, we were really inspiring composers from various countries. Yep. And this is what I liked about our career, that we were enriching the harp literature.
The piece we are going to play for you, it's called Fishing Song on the East Sea, and it was written and dedicated to Barbara by a Chinese composer, Chang Yan.
But I think the main 3 harp makers that I know about, it's Lionel Healy, Salvi and Kamak, and they all do wonderful stuff. They compete because they are all good. I have an American harp because I lived in the United States of America, and this is what I could buy over there. Mm-hmm. So this is what I play, but my students purchase harps from different companies, but always one of the 3 that I mentioned. For me, what is important is the tone, but I also know that it depends on the player. Every player puts his soul into the instrument, and then the instrument becomes mellow if you want it to have this sound. But this is what I look for, this mellow sound. And of course I look at how the pedals work, if they are not too hard. But also knowing how the harp is built, sometimes the pedals don't go all the way down, but I know that the reason is that the rod is a little bit too short, and you can unscrew it a little bit, and then it will be perfect, and I'm happy with them. Because I believe that the composer that is really genius of all times is Johann Sebastian Bach. And what did he write for the harp? Nothing. His son wrote the sonata, which is wonderful. Well, I like to play virtuoso harpist composers who knew their instrument and they knew how to use it. They understood the beauty of the harp, the limitations of the harp, and they were expanding the possibilities of the harp. Like, for instance, I love Hindemith Sonata. I think it's a wonderful piece of music. There are some classical composers who knew how to write for the harp very much, and their sonatas, Dussek and Krumholtz and Petrini, and they are all Dizzi, they are all wonderful. I don't think I have just like one composer that I like. I appreciate Salcedo, I appreciate what he did. I always loved his scintillation because it was also obligatory for the competition in Hartford. And I think it's a wonderful piece of music, and it's very rarely played. I like Tournier, but I listen to all kinds of music, and I love Shostakovich, and I love Rachmaninoff, and I love Prokofiev. And as far as the contemporary pieces for the harp, I like what Marta Ptaszyńska wrote. She wrote the 6 bagatelles. I think that they are very cute and very nice. I believe that any piece that you play well and you give the feeling of the era, of the time it was written in, and you just transpose the listeners into that era, it's wonderful. Like Fanny just played Spohr's Variations. It's a very beautiful and demanding piece of music. Nino Rota is a composer, and he wrote so many great pieces for the harp. His Prayer and his Sonatina, and now the Variations. Very, very beautiful fantasy, very beautiful to play on the harp. So I don't think I have just one composer that I would play more often than different ones. When I went to the United States and I showed my diploma, my master's diploma, I was told that because I studied the harp only 4 years, this is how long it took to become a Master of Art in harp in Warsaw, I was told that this is only good as bachelor degree. I studied for my master's degree in New York at the New York University. It took me 2 years because I had to collect 128 points, which was wonderful. We traveled, and in the meantime I was studying, I was taking the courses, I was taking tests and exams. So 2 years wasn't much. And after some time I decided this is not enough, that I would like to get my PhD. So I started studying for that degree, which took me another 2 years because I needed again 128 points. For my master's degree, the dissertation or the thesis was titled Annotated Bibliography of the History of the Harp. So I just read as many books on the history of art as there were in New York. I was going to the public library, but the best library for me was at the Lincoln Center. This is where you have Metropolitan Opera, this is where you have New York Philharmonic, where you have Juilliard School, when you have the building for ballet, and they have there the library for the performing arts. And this is where I studied many hours. And first you had to do one recital, and like for masters, 2 recitals. But the second recital for PhD was combined with a lecture, which was a little bit difficult because I had to do it in foreign language, and here I had to talk and then I had to play. But it was challenging, and I like that. My problem was that the title of my dissertation was Contribution of Virtuoso Harpist Composers to the Growth of Harp Literature. When I started doing the research, I found 44 names. My dissertation proposal was like 90 pages long, and the bibliography had 5 pages of bibliography. And at that very point, my daughter was born. Well, I taught, but I also had all kinds of other chamber groups. I played with Barbara, we had Warsaw Harp Duo. Then I played with Marjorie Fitz, we had the New York Harp Duo. Then I was the music director of the Polish American Cultural Association, and I had Slavic ensemble, chamber group that we had the violin, cello, and the harp, and for many, many years we played in the greater New York area. Then I also, living in New York, I also played with different orchestras and smaller groups. Well, I just love America. I was extremely happy when I became an American citizen, only because I could travel. The whole world suddenly became open to me. And well, I have a lot of friends, as I mentioned, Marjorie Fitz, Park Stickney, also played with the New York Harp Ensemble. I had friends in the New York Philharmonic. I was friends with other harpists. They might not be known here, but mostly in the New York area. I am friends with Carol McLaughlin, who is the teacher of Park Stickney. Well, I'm friends with Samuel, the guy that repairs harps, Sam Milligan. Well, I'm great friends with Ursula Kwaśnicka, whom I've known ever since we were in the same school, who lives in New York State. A lot of friends.
Mm-hmm. And did you believe that the Iron Curtain would fall and you could come back to
Never
Poland?
dreamt about it, never. It was maybe a thought, a wishful thinking all the time, living in my mind, in my soul. But I don't think I ever really wished, because it seemed so far-fetched. So when finally we did become free, it was like blessing from heaven. I am extremely happy.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, family above all. I don't think so. I think we can sleep soundly and not worry about that, because no computer has the soul. I was asked once, I did concerts for school children, and before the harp they had the violin. And the little girls learned that violin has this piece inside this sounding box that is called the soul. And after I finished playing, two little girls came to me and they asked me, does the harp also have the soul? And I answered, yes, that's the soul of the musician. So there are no machines that can feel like we do. And there are not two performers that will play the same way, because they will not feel the music the same way. And that's why it's so fascinating to listen to different musicians, how they interpret same pieces in a little bit different way because of what they have inside. Maybe it's not very many of us who love classical music, who feel classical music, who have the need for listening and making music, but we will always be appreciated, I'm sure. When you are a young musician, you cannot make mistakes. You just have to learn how not to have stage fright. If you are not afraid of going to the stage and playing your soul to the audience, if you know that you practiced enough, that you know the pieces enough, if you know that your technique is up to the program that you've chosen, I don't think you have nothing to fear. But no, mistakes, you cannot make mistakes. Really great musicians, towards the end of their careers, they would make mistakes and they would be forgiven because people remember them from earlier years that they were immaculate. The classical music, well, it went through all kinds of stages. We had this 12-tone music, aleatoric music. We had all kinds of techniques that composers were experimenting in, but music will survive because it is a part of us. We have rhythm in our bodies. We have music around us in nature, if you only listen to nature. So music is surrounding us, music is in the universe. Cosmos is full of music. And some of us are more open to hearing what the outside has to tell us. Music will always be with us. And I don't think it's going in the wrong direction. It has to go through all kinds of turns, but we are going to have music all the time with us.